With the nation's economy still in recovery and impacting municipalities, the city of Chicago is taking measures to close its budget deficit. Mayor Daley outlined the steps the city will take when he presented the proposed 2010 City of Chicago budget to the Chicago City Council on October 21st. Here is his address in its entirety on Chicago Works.
I come before you today to present the 2010 City of Chicago budget for your consideration. As you can appreciate, it's been a challenging budget to craft. We need your comments on it more than ever. Not since the Great Depression, 70 years ago, have so many people suffered as greatly and for so long from a bad economy. The global recession that began over a year ago has been unprecedented in its impact on people's lives. Even though some economists say the recession is ending, I see too many families that are still struggling to get by today, both in Chicago and across the nation. Time and again, I've spoken to Chicagoans who have lost their homes or jobs. I share their frustration that businesses aren't hiring and that new jobs are not being created. Like you, I know that some families are still being forced to drain their bank accounts to put food on the table and pay their bills. These Chicagoans are our neighbors, single moms, our senior citizens, and working people of all backgrounds. While I'm confident that down the road the economy will improve, our revenues will increase, and businesses will start to hire again, I don't see a huge turnaround in the next year. Still, I know that if we act responsibly, Chicago will get through these challenging times and emerge stronger for it. And more than ever, Chicago's working and middle-class families need our support. And to them, I want to say, I hear you. I know you're struggling. I'm fighting for you. That starts with doing all we can to speed up our economic recovery and grow our economy. Moving forward, we must better train our workers for the jobs of tomorrow. And we must do more to create new jobs, new opportunities, and new businesses, so we can help people get back to work. By acting now, we can build a stronger, better future. In the budget I present to you today, we will. At the same time, as we all know, Chicago is facing an epidemic of needless violence that is killing our young people. The violence is horrible and wrong. I will not rest until we've done all we can to help end it. Protecting our young people must be Chicago's shared mission. We must do as the people of East Garfield did recently, stand up to the gangbangers and say, enough is enough, no code of silence. Just days after the tragic murder of Natasha Hollett, with the aid of the community, her killers were behind bars. I want us to put our city's energy and passion into giving our children a good education, creating opportunity, protecting them, and getting them on the right track in life. In this budget, we will. At the same time, we must face up to the challenges of the recession and get more from every tax dollar, manage government even better, and resist adding major new programs or spending. We also need to listen to people who are rightly upset about taxes and a culture of misconduct that has become pervasive throughout our society and across the nation. In this budget, we will. Times are tough for Chicago families, and just as tough for every city and state around the nation, most of which are still experiencing a loss in revenue because of the recession. The challenge is that even though our revenues are falling, people demand more services from cities, not fewer, to help them through these difficult and tough times. This forces cities to revisit their budgets, which must be balanced, unlike the federal government, which can run up a massive deficit. With the profound challenges caused by the nation's recession in mind, I present to you a balanced city budget for the next year that better manages our resources, responsibly meets Chicago needs, and protects our taxpayers. First, this budget meets today's urgent needs. We will invest to help prevent youth violence, create new jobs and opportunities, provide job training, and invest in much-needed neighborhood improvements. We'll also invest to support those most in need, including our seniors, the homeless, and ex-offenders. This budget invests $1 billion in federal economic stimulus funds in areas such as job training, street resurfacing, and energy efficiency. This will help us create jobs and improve the quality of life. Next, the budget delivers on our commitment to better manage government. It cuts spending by another $114 million and returns non-personal spending to pre-2009 levels. For our city's protection and to help us prevent violence against our youngest, it maintains the number of police officers in our police and fire departments. It uses new federal funding, including economic stimulus funding, to add 86 more police officers. Protect our quality of life, it maintains basic day-to-day services such as garbage collection, snow removal, and street sweeping. It protects taxpayers by holding the line on taxes. In next year's budget, we will not raise property taxes. We will not include any new tax, fine, or fee, or increase any current tax, fine, or fee. With so many people struggling, this isn't the time to ask them to pay more and more. It's time for us to give back to them. So we will also provide property tax relief this year to the hardest hit homeowners. I am recommending that we use $35 million from the Parking Meter Human Infrastructure Fund this year to provide property tax grants to homeowners who will be hardest hit by the phase-out of the 7% cap in Springfield. Under our proposal, the details for which I'll announce soon, we will offer as much as $200 to individual homeowners who are in need. And next year in Springfield, we will once again pursue our agenda to reenact the 7% cap on property tax increases, a circuit breaker program to protect homeowners, and of course, education funding reform. Before I get into details of how Balance the Budget invests in our city, I want to address another issue that I and the people of our city are deeply concerned about: wrongdoing at any levels of government and business across our country. I know people are frustrated, and they have every right to be. In this budget, I hope it's loud and clear that we'll not tolerate wrongdoing in city government. Misconduct only undermines people's confidence in the job I'm trying to do for them. I'm just as frustrated as everyone else when it happens. If anyone still hasn't received the message that misconduct in city government will be uncovered whenever and wherever it occurs, I recently appointed a new Inspector General, Joe Ferguson, a veteran assistant U.S. attorney in Chicago. Joe is dedicated, long-time public official who has been a long record of prosecuting wrongdoings, protecting the public, and people should have every confidence in him. Further, to protect taxpayers from misconduct by employees and those who do business with the city, we will strengthen the Office of Compliance, its ability to prevent fraud and wrongdoing in the Women and Minority-Owned Business Program. This program is important to our city's future, and people must know that it is run openly, honestly, and fairly. To make government even more open and transparent, we will soon put online all current statements reflecting financial interests of city employees, elected, and other city officials. We will also put online all members of the boards and commissions. I hope these steps, which are among many we have taken to prevent and uncover misconduct, will build confidence in our actions and decisions. I also hope that people have confidence in the budget we're offering today. After months of hard work, it has been developed by our budget chief, Gene Moonen, and his staff. It was difficult to craft, in part because revenues have fallen each month this year, so that the projected deficit for 27 is $520 million. The deficit, as you know, is historically high in Chicago and other cities for two reasons. First, the nation's recession is unprecedented, far worse than any of us have ever experienced. In Chicago, since last year, it has meant a drop of more than 17% in economically sensitive tax revenues, including the sales tax, the real estate transfer tax, and the income tax. Since the high point in 2007, economically sensitive revenues have fallen more than 31%. Secondly, the cost of government, city government, continues to increase, not because we're adding major new programs or spending, but because the cost of salaries, pensions, and health care grows. Personnel costs make up 80% of the expenditures of city government. I want to repeat that. Personnel costs make up 80% of all the expenditures of city government. Looking ahead, we are cautiously hopeful that some revenues will begin to recover, although we don't expect revenues to fully rebound for several years. No city or state in the nation can. Thankfully, though, we can cut spending well before we hit the recession full impact. Had we not, the deficit would be higher today. The fact, in addition to the $2.5 billion in spending we cut since I became mayor, last year we cut another $168 million. This year we have already cut over $59 million. In this budget, we will cut $114 million more. You also need to know that because of good management, we've been able to keep city property tax increases to an average of 1.3% a year since I've been mayor, well below the rate of inflation. In the last 10 years, we have reduced the number of city employees by more than 6,200, even as we added sworn police officers. We've done more with less. As you know, this year, we've taken meaningful steps to help reduce personnel costs, which has helped balance our budget this year and next. Because I understand that people want their leaders to share in this sacrifice, starting with me, I've asked every non-union employee to take unpaid and furlough days this year and next, which in 2010 will mean 24 unpaid days. I would never ask anyone to do something I wasn't willing to do first. We also received the cooperation of most of the city unions to take unpaid holidays, work weeks that are reduced by 2 hours, and comp time instead of overtime. These important agreements, which are also in effect next year's budget, have helped thousands of union members keep their jobs. They've helped us maintain city services. I want to thank labor leaders Dennis Gannon and Tom Villanova, and the leaders of each union who participated for their support, as well as thousands of union members who wanted to be part of the solution and to our budget challenges. And I thank each and every one of their families. At the same time, we have acted boldly yet responsibly to help protect taxpayers by leasing our Skyway, our parking garages, and parking meters. Why? To help build up reserves so that if times became tough, we could turn to these reserves, not our taxpayers, for helping and balancing our budget and providing needed services to people. Well, times did become tough. These are the toughest times in decades. Without these agreements, we would now be forced to raise property taxes both this year and next year. We'll be forced to raise other taxes and fees. We'll be forced to eliminate key programs that people depend upon. Over the next year, the parking meter agreement will fund a variety of programs through the Parking Meter Human Infrastructure Fund. This comes at the very time that people need us to stand up for them, though we'll invest more than $56 million to support those in need. We'll increase funding for home delivery meals to our seniors, housing and rental subsidies to low-income families and programs for ex-offenders. We'll increase funding for homeless shelter beds and food boxes, as well as Share the Warmth program, which helps needy families pay their heating bills. Further, we'll be able to maintain funding for our plan to end homelessness, which provides transition assistance for those in need. We'll increase funding for after-school and summer programs for young people, and we will create jobs. Had we not leased city assets, we'd be forced to do what many other cities are doing. They're raising taxes, cutting basic services that people need now more than ever. Other cities have been forced to reduce key services during these tough times. For example, New York is expected to eliminate more than 2,000 positions. Baltimore has eliminated live 311 service at night. Boston has postponed $600 million in capital projects. Milwaukee has proposed raising its property tax by 4.4%. Cincinnati is suspending curbside collection of yard waste. Chicago has not, and we will not in this budget. The bottom line is that no other city has this type of reserve fund to help them balance their budget. Chicago has led the way when it comes to implementing innovative management initiatives. Thankfully, we acted early enough so we could help cushion the impact of the recession on our residents. Still, I am committed to get more for every tax dollar. Months ago, I instructed the Budget Office to tighten the belt on spending and new hiring, and they did. It eliminated approximately 220 existing vacancies to save $16 million, saved an additional $6 million by eliminating cost of living increases for non-union employees. It also cut another $20 million, or 5.3%, in non-personal costs for contracts, equipment, travel, and supplies. Further, working with the Chief Financial Officer's office, it will finance and restructure debt to generate $118 million. All this is reflected in next year's budget. So is the ongoing impact of the 2009 labor agreements and non-union wage reductions that I discussed, which are expected to save $70 million. But even with these steps, we must do more to balance next year's budget. I propose to eliminate 2 tax increment financing districts, either because they're inactive or they're set to expire anyway. From this, the city will receive approximately $8 million. In a step I hope we would not have to take, we will borrow from the city's parking meter reserve funds. I'd hope to avoid this. I understand that some may have problems with it. But as mayor, I have the responsibility to provide the services that people need, especially now during these tough economic times when they demand more from government and not less. From my experience, I know that a service that one person considers to be non-essential is essential to someone else's. As I said, now is not the time to burden people with higher taxes or elimination of essential city services. So I believe it is responsible to borrow from the reserves. As the economy recovers and after city revenues return to more normal levels, we plan to replenish it. How do we plan to use these parking meter reserves next year? First, we will advance the $100 million in 2012 parking meter midterm reserve into 2010. As you know, we've already used the rainy day fund to help balance the 2009 and 2010 budgets. We'll also use another $270 million from the parking meter long-term reserve account with a plan that this will be replenished when revenues have rebounded. I want to make it clear, we will not use any of the Skyway long-term reserve fund of $500 million to balance next year's budget. It will remain intact. The $100 million in midterm reserve funds originally established for 2011 remains intact as well. When you add these to the $130 million left from the parking meter long-term reserve fund, the city will have a reserve fund balance of $730 million. We can choose to use those reserves or not in the years ahead. At the same time, I would continue to advance efforts to reshape government so we can better provide the services that people need. To serve our families and businesses in a more coordinated way, this year we created a combined Department of Family and Support Services, a combined Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. As I said, in next year's budget, we'll ask the Department of Compliance to streamline the certification process for minority and women-owned businesses. We will better align our infrastructure maintenance program by moving street lights, traffic signals, and red light cameras to the responsibility to the Department of Transportation. And earlier this year, we worked with Cook County to transfer responsibility for the issuance of vital records from the city's health department to the county to better serve people. With this in mind, I've asked my staff to continue to work with Cook County to identify other opportunities where we combine overlapping responsibilities. Better management alone will not help us address our most pressing challenges. There's no greater or immediate challenge facing Chicago today than ending the violence that is needlessly killing all of our young people. When a young person is killed, it diminishes each of us. I have lost a child. There's nothing more devastating for a family to experience. Yet, I am very concerned that too many people still seem to accept that violence as a matter of fact of life when you live in a big city. And even with the best efforts of the Chicago Police Department and thousands of Chicagoans who rally against it every week, as well as many community and religious groups that offer positive programs for our children, the violence continues. It doesn't make me feel any better that at the very same time, the city's homicide rate is dropping. The number of shootings is lower than last year, but the violence against our youngest goes on. Ending the violence must be Chicago's crusade, and each of us must do our part, our police, our parents, our community, and our schools. Every adult can be a mentor. You can support a local church or community group, or help them offer after-school programs. Parents can keep their children in school, involved in positive activities, and at home during curfew hours. Under the budget, we have challenged our police department and every other city agency to do all we can to protect our children and keep them on the right track. The Chicago Police Department will increase and better deploy police resources to troubled schools and on public transportation at dismissal times. They will continue enforcing the city's curfew in every neighborhood. We know it saves lives. I've asked them to use every resource to break up gang, gun, and drug activity and to work more closely with the federal government to dismantle the gang activity. They will work with our community policing program, the Chicago Public Schools, to launch an improved Safe Passage program for all of our students. We'll also implement a new community intervention program in 3 communities most at risk of youth violence, modeled on the initiative we piloted this summer in Inglewood. In partnership with the Cook County Juvenile Court, we have developed a new pilot program to connect young people charged with gun offenses in high-risk neighborhoods with social services and a mentoring program. Further, our community policing group, CAPS, will launch a door-to-door campaign to create and expand block clubs to act as the eyes and ears of our community, helping to keep kids safe as they go to and from school and play. I again want to challenge every person in Chicago to end the code of silence. There are many ways people can safely and honestly report crimes and criminals, including through their religious leaders. We'll also, of course, continue our efforts to pass reasonable gun laws in Springfield, including creating an anti-gun trafficking task force. We all know that a child who is involved in positive activities is better off and away from the threat of violence. Towards that goal, despite our budget challenges, I've made it a priority to continue offering thousands of after-school programs opportunities this fall and throughout 2010. Unlike other cities that have been forced to cut after-school and summer programs, Chicago is not only maintaining its existing youth programs, but expanding them. Using the parking meter funds, we'll allocate $1.5 million for after-school recreational summer education programs to serve an additional 1,500 youngsters between the age of 6 and 18. We'll also offer hundreds of students after-school paid jobs. Taken together, this budget devotes more than $33 million to keep our young people engaged in positive activities and out of harm's way. Next, to help our kids stay on the right track, starting early in life, we'll invest $8 million in federal funds to expand early childhood education opportunities to low-income families through Head Start. And through a new program at our public libraries, U-Media, we will better connect teenagers with books, digital, and computer technologies. We're also stepping up our efforts to keep Chicago as safe as it can be. We will use federal funding to assign 36 new police officers to public transportation, and the remaining 50 new officers will be put on street patrol. The Office of Emergency Communication will enhance its cutting-edge technology, will give 911 operators the ability to receive text messages, pictures, video, including real-time pictures from neighborhood safety cameras. The fire department will have more of its engines and trucks upgraded to become advanced life support units with advanced medical equipment and paramedics aboard. We all understand that even as we take these steps, we must also attack the underlying problems behind youth violence: education, poverty, and lack of economic opportunity. And through our efforts to speed up our economic recovery, we will. We won't emerge from the recession better prepared to create more jobs and opportunities unless we take the bull by the horns and act today. Just last week, I announced that we will use up to $25 million in parking meter funds, including $8.4 million next year, to fund a job training program for Chicago workers who have been laid off during the bad economy. It's called Tech Core. It will provide technology training for laid-off workers in administrative and professional fields and employ them in temporary jobs. With this program, we want to create a pool of trained workers so that any company looking for skilled employees can find it right here in the city of Chicago. We'll also be seeking federal and other outside funds to help support these programs, and I'll explain that much more in detail later on. This effort will supplement our ongoing workforce program, which are intended to retrain Chicago workers for new economy jobs, including $59 million contained in 2010 for job training and placement programs. In the next few weeks, we'll announce a major new collaboration between government and Chicago business community, focused on using our resources more effectively to help recruit, retain businesses and trade shows in Chicago. This effort will involve World Business Chicago, Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau, and major business leaders. Further, I will propose new steps to help our small businesses stay afloat so they too can retain and create jobs, especially in hard-hit neighborhoods. As part of our efforts to close the digital divide, we are pursuing a federal grant for broadband infrastructure that would change the face of technology in our city, especially for underserved neighborhoods, and create jobs. We will continue to implement our Green Jobs for All program to increase job training and number of green jobs available in Chicago. We'll propose how we hope to diversify for the new economy, for example, with jobs that specialize in biosciences. As we work to create new jobs, I will continue to strongly urge the United States Congress to extend unemployment benefits for the 1.5 million Americans scheduled to lose their benefits before the end of the year, and to enact a new tax incentive to support long-term job creation for American businesses. We also want to thank the federal government for supporting cities and states through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. To date, the city and other sister agencies have received $1 billion in stimulus funds, have applied for an additional $1.6 billion, all aimed at retaining and creating local jobs. Our unique recovery partnership with local philanthropic community is helping to make these dollars go even further. But our efforts to Chicago's future don't stop there. In this budget, we will, of course, continue to invest and to improve neighborhood quality of life. We will continue to invest funds to help homeowners prevent foreclosure, hold property owners responsible for securing and maintaining vacant property. We return more vacant properties to productive use as viable housing rather than letting them contribute to neighborhood blight. We must continue to invest in our city's streets, alleys, sidewalks, or we risk falling behind. Through our capital program, where we construct 11 miles of sewers, lining and rehab an additional 40 miles of them. We resurface more than 550 blocks of local streets, more than 110 alleys, replace more than 150 blocks of sidewalks. In addition, we'll install 100 blocks of new residential street lighting, install new or upgraded traffic signals at 21 intersections. We will start construction of new community anchors, new fire station at 22nd and Kedzie, the new 23rd District Police Station at Halsted and Addison. The new Westtown Branch Library will be built. The city will begin construction of new West Humboldt Park, Greater Grand Crossing, Marshall Square, and Dunning Branch libraries. The challenges we face today are greater than ever, but we can't let the challenges of tough times stand in our way. The balanced budget I propose today responsibly meets the challenges of the most painful economy in 70 years. It maintains city services. It does more with less. It protects taxpayers. It invests in people's most pressing needs. Some will say we should have cut essential services and raised taxes to balance our budget. I disagree. During these tough times, that's the last thing people need. I chose to be on the side of Chicago's working and middle-class families. And with this budget, I'm confident that we will get through these tough times. We'll build a better, a stronger Chicago for them and every Chicagoan. Thank you.